man I worked for, one of the biggest companies in New York City, ran it for more than 50 years. 15 years, 8 months, 9 days. I was with him every day. I worked for him, I protected him, I looked after him, I learned from him.
They were doing American Gangster. Was it accurate?
We made a simple format to test how accurate it is. The first test is appearance. Do the characters lie?
The second is obviously the story. How much did the movie plot line up with the true story?
And then after we do the story, we will go into how the setting was portrayed in the movie. Is the location right? Is the time right?
Then we wrap it up by saying how much of it was Hollywood and how much of it was real. And most importantly, was it a good movie?
You understand? That's alpaca. That's $25,000 alpaca. You block that shit.
Of course, we're going to roll right into the character comparisons. Now, you know what Frank Lucas looks like, and you know what Denzel Washington looks like. Do you think they nailed the character?
I think they nailed the fashion appearance of the character. But if you're asking me if Denzel Washington looks like Frank Lucas, hell no. Frank Lucas looks like Jay-Z, bro. He's got the big lips and the big nose, and Denzel Washington has smaller lips, more of a defined nose, and
Yeah, and Frank Lucas was apparently a smaller fellow, and Denzel kind of holds a pretty high posture. So for the most part, yes, they do look right. When he goes to Asia to meet up with everybody, he does pose as military. So as much as they could, Denzel dressed like Frank Lucas. So we'll give him that. We'll give him the characters.
Yeah, he did. Was the story accurate? It was to an extent. So everything that happened with Bumpy Johnson in the movie, I don't believe that happened in real life. His wife has already stated that he was not there.
He wasn't there the night he died. Yeah.
But in the movie, he was there the night he died, and Bumpy Johnson's wife does not attest to that.
Yeah, Frank Lucas was not as close to Bumpy Johnson as Frank Lucas claims.
Right. Now I'm not saying he didn't know Bumpy Johnson. I'm just saying he's not the right hand man he claims he was.
Yeah. So that part's not really accurate. Richie Roberts, the guy who's chasing Frank Lucas this whole time, they make him seem like all these other cops are out to get him, and that everybody looks at him like he's crazy. That wasn't true. Richie Roberts was actually a very well-respected cop. He had a lot of people who backed him up. He did turn in $1 million. That was real. Richie Roberts, but he didn't get people weren't like, oh, he fucking shit. He kept it. He never got harassed for it. So Richie Roberts' life was a little easier, and he also wasn't going through a divorce. So that's the two main characters in this. And Richie Roberts, they kind of made him kind of this antagonist, and they made Denzel the protagonist. So they made Denzel better than he was.
The movie made Frank Lucas look like a hero,
and he just wasn't.
He wasn't, Joe.
He was a gangster though.
He was
American.
He was.
For the most part, the story is pretty accurate. Now, there's also claims about the coffins that a Sergeant Smack, Leslie Ike Atkinson, Sergeant, says that they never sent drugs in bodies with soldiers. They said with dead soldiers. He says that they sent it in through furniture.
I want to say that Frank Lucas was more on par with that.
But, I mean, the story for the most part is very accurate, but the setting, they nailed it. As far as the setting's concerned, yeah, it took place in Harlem, took place in New York, and the movie portrays that very well. Even when Frank Lucas goes to, Southeast Asia, to Vietnam, he did pose, and he did hang out with the military. He was apparently like one of these people. The sergeant was dating or married to his wife or cousin. Shit.
Right. So he went to Vietnam. He went to the Star Bar, R&R Bar, which was a bar that was in Thailand, where all the black soldiers went to hang out, and that's where he met Leslie Ike Atkinson, who was married to one of his cousins, who had the connection.
Frank Lucas was in Bangkok, confirmed. That did happen. So that's the only two settings you really need to worry about, and they kind of nailed it. They got the time right. Frank did dress up in military outfits. He did wear that mink coat where he gets caught walking out. Yeah, and a hat. It looks just like it. I mean, there's subtle differences, but
that in the movie they portrayed that instance as the reason why he got caught. But apparently, according to Richie Robinson, they were onto him way before that.
Oh yeah. According to Richie Robinson, they had a whole team of guys. He was just the spokes guy, and they were definitely already on to Frank Lucas before the Mink Code.
Right, and he got busted twice for drug trafficking and smuggling. He got busted in 76 and in 84, right? So obviously he wasn't new to this. He's only had one occupation his entire life. It was drug smuggling.
Yeah.
Right?
The only one you need when you're valued at $52 million back then.
Right. Based off of our research, him making $1 million a day was a bit of an exaggeration.
It was an exaggeration.
Yeah, but he was a millionaire. His net worth was $52 million when they got him.
Which was a lot back then. That was movie high. He didn't make that much. He was a kingpin, if you will. He definitely was a leader of a drug trade. So he was making hand over fist money, but he wasn't making the money that was portrayed.
In the movie, you know, he shoots the guy walking out of the cafe.
Yeah.
He actually shot that guy. That really happened.
And he admits to it in an interview. He talks about
it.
It
Admit
personally.
to it. Yeah, he did. They cleared him for that murder pretty much for giving up the dirty cops. But he
Snitch.
he wasn't aiming for the head. In the movie, he shot him in the head. In real life, he shot him in the head, but he was actually aiming for him in the chest. Granted, he was a smaller guy versus how they portrayed him in the movie, and the recoil from the gun was why he shot the guy.
Yeah, so he wasn't as badass as the movie intended. So in the movie, Denzel walks up super confident, puts the gun to his head, boom, does it like a boss.
Yeah.
But Frank Lucas admits that he was scared out of his fucking pants because the guy was much taller and bigger than he was, could definitely kick his ass. And, well, Frank had a gat. So he wasn't as big and tough as the movie portrayed.
He wasn't a fighter, he was a shooter.
He definitely was a shooter.
Yeah, he was a shooter. He wasn't scared to shoot your friends. That's a fact. I mean, but the way it was portrayed in the movie, he didn't just 100% gangster walk up and just.
He didn't do it as good as Denzel. That was some movie fluff. He did not marry Miss Puerto Rico. His wife was not Miss Puerto Rico. That was some movie hype as well, just to make it a little more interesting, make his girl look a little more attractive, if you will. And he definitely was not a family man. So in the movie, he's like surrounded by family the whole time.
Bought his mother a house. That never happened.
No, he was a piece of shit.
You know what he actually did with that money? He bought multiple houses for himself and multiple businesses in Detroit and Miami, which were all seized.
All taken.
After he got caught. All the money he had in offshore accounts in the Cayman Islands, seized.
Now, this was not fluff. He did give Joe Frazier $50,000 to help pay off his taxes. That was real. So he gave the boxer Joe Frazier 50 G's to clear his taxes. So there's some stuff you wouldn't believe that is real, but there's a lot of it that's a little fluffed for them.
And he did have connections. He was intertwined with the entertainment industry, you know, things like that. He had those connections. He
knows guys.
He had mob ties. He had entertainment ties. He had all that.
Which is true. That is true. That was not hyped. Actually, kind of underplayed in the movie. Like you see him kind of hanging out with these famous people around them, but doesn't really mingle with them. In real life, he did. He did mingle with them. And he wasn't as low key as portrayed by Denzel's character. He was pretty fucking obvious already, apparently. Like
he did try to dress business-like, he did dress professional. He just wasn't as low key with the whole business as
he wasn't as organized as the movie portrayed. He did have shops with girls topless, you know, cooking up some heroin. That was real.
He did give junkies free samples to try it too. That was a legitimate thing, but
it wasn't as smooth as the movie portrayed.
Because you got to think, in that area at that time, there was the Italian mob controlled the entire area. He kind of broke into it as the first black mob guy, but he wasn't as organized as the mob.
Which this is true, so this isn't really movie hype, but yeah, he got a hookup from Bangkok, and that's how he broke into this. He had hookups in places that other people didn't. So a lot of credit is given this guy. There's a decent amount of the movie fluff, but for the most part, was American Gangster accurate? It's pretty fucking accurate.
It was pretty on point.
Russell Crowe's character, Richie Roberts, he had a much better life than portrayed. He never went through a divorce. Him and his wife were good. He had a good at-home life. So, like, there's this, I would say Richie Roberts' life is more fluffed than Denzel's. They made him look way worse than he actually was in real life. In real life, he was a pretty chill, good guy. Had it together.
They made Russell Crowe's character look like the guy who's losing everything because he works too much.
Yeah, and that just wasn't the case. And Richie Roberts has said many times, he's like, dude, it wasn't just me hunting down Frank Lucas. I had a whole group of guys with me, and they were amazing. And he contributes the whole investigation to his team. It wasn't like this solo man versus Frank Lucas. It was a whole team of guys. And I would say that's the only thing they really messed up with is Richie Roberts' character. But was it a good movie?
Hell yeah.
It's a fucking awesome movie. Absolutely.
It's a movie you're going to watch multiple times. Guaranteed.
And already have.